Hey, it's Alex from You Should Craft, and today I'm going to show you how to crochet the Twisted Whims hat. So this hat is a little bit slouchy. I put a fairy pom-pom on mine, but you could use a regular yarn pom-pom or just skip the pom altogether. And it gets the twisted name because I use twisted single crochets to create this ribbing on the folded brim. In order to crochet this hat, you'll need worsted weight yarn. I used worsted weight Whims merino yarn, which is from Furls Crochet. I used two 100-gram hanks, and then I had this ball left over when I was done. So I used about 180 yards. So you could sub out the Whims merino for your favorite worsted weight yarn. And again, you'll just need like 180 to 190 yards of it. And then I used a J crochet hook. This is a Rose Gold Peach Odyssey, which is also from Furls Crochet. It's an awesome hook. It's sparkly. They have a lot of colors, and then it's weighted really well. So I like this one a lot. And if you're looking for like an ergonomic, fancy hook, this is definitely recommended. But so anyway, once you have your yarn and your hook, we can go ahead and get started. So you'll start this off like any typical chained crochet pattern. We're going to do our slip knot, and then we'll begin by chaining 41. All right, so there's what I think is 41. Before starting a project, I always recommend that you go ahead and double count your chains. And for larger projects, I like to put little stitch markers every like 10 or 20 chains. Just so that you're not trying to count to like 180 every time. 1, 2. All right, so I've got 41. You're going to begin by doing a half double crochet in the second chain from the hook. Just going to roll out a little bit more of my yarn. And I always go in the back bumps of the starting chain. So if you look at kind of the top of the chain, you've got these V's that look like the tops of stitches. And if you turn it, there's kind of these little bumps in the middle. And I go into those. And what that does is it leaves the clean V edge on the edge of your project. So here's my first bump. I'm skipping that, and I'm putting my half double crochet right here in chain number 2. So we're going to do a total of 30 half double crochets, and the starting chain or the turning chain does not count as a stitch. So to half double crochet, we yarn over, insert the hook, yarn over, pull through that first loop, yarn over, and pull through 3 more loops. The half double crochet is one of my favorites. It's fast, it's a little bit taller than single crochets. It creates kind of a cool texture. And so for the 30, you have a couple options for counting. You can totally count as you go. You can do a bunch and hope for the best, or you can keep an eye on how many chains you have left. And you're going to have 40 total stitches in this row. So once you've finished your 30 half double crochets, then you should have 10 chains left over. So go ahead and finish up crocheting. Remember, we're doing 30 half double crochets into the back bumps of our starting chain. So go ahead, pause the video, finish this up, and I'll see you in a sec. All right, so I just finished crocheting my 30 half double crochets, and now I have 10 chains left. We're still going to go in the back bumps, but these last 10 stitches are going to be double crochets. So you start off with these pretty similar to how you do a half double crochet. So you yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull that first loop through. But instead of pulling all of these over at the same time, we're going to split it into two. So yarn over, pull through the first two loops, yarn over and pull through that last loop, and there's your double crochet. So yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, get your first two loops, and then the last two. So we're doing 10 of these, so just up until we reach the end, get that very last stitch. The reason for this is because when we do our twisted single crochets, we're going to end up with 2 rows of half double crochets for like every 1 row of twisted single crochets, and it messes with the height a little bit. So we use the double crochets to, oops, that was a half double. We use the double crochets to get the height right on this brim part. Otherwise there would be a lot of bunching, because you'll see it when we start to like get going. But when we do the twisted single crochets, they're not even really part of our project. They kind of just sit on top of it. And so we're losing that row almost. Oh no. All right, so I just have a couple more left here. And sometimes it can be tricky to get your hook in these last couple of chains. I feel like kind of the closer things are to the slip knot, like the weirder, the weirder they are. Okay, so we can double check our counting just to be sure. And you can kind of see already that the double crochets are a little bit higher than our half doubles. So, and you can also tell the differences because half double crochets have 1 slash on them and double crochets have 2. So it's a little bit more like twisted looking. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So now we're ready to chain 1, turn our work, and start on our twisted single crochets. So to twisted single crochet in the middle of a project, what you're going to do is put your hook into the back loop, and you're going to just start off like a normal single crochet, and then you're going to twist your hook a full 360 degrees counterclockwise and yarn over and pull through. So again, we're inserting our hook into the back loop. If you look, there are V's. And so the V that's closest to you, or not a V, but like the side of the V that's closest to you, this one, these are the front loops, and then these ones are the back loops. So we put our hook into the back loop, we yarn over and pull through that first loop, twist our hook a full 360 degrees, yarn over and pull through. Depending on your tension, this can be a little bit tricky to do because it's twisted, but put your hook into the back loop, yarn over, pull through the first loop, twist, and pull through the last 2. And so once you get a couple of these, you can start to kind of see what it's doing. So if you turn your work, you can see that it's like creating this little brim or ridge here because of all the twisting. We are going to keep doing and keep going, and we're going to put 1 twisted single crochet on top of each of these 10 double crochets from the previous row. So we've got like 2 left. And in order to count your twisted single crochets, if you lose count, I find it really easy to just look at the double crochets. And then once you reach the last double crochet, you'll know that that's your last twisted single crochet. But you can count them if you just look for these loops that are popping up. So you can see like your back loops coming off, and they have a stitch in them even though it's twisted sideways. So that will allow you to count how many twisted single crochets you have. But once you get your 10, you're going to crochet into both loops now, and we're going to do 30 half double crochets. So there's our first one, second, third, just to kind of show you what this looks like. You can see this ridge here, and that is, these are the front loops that we haven't used yet, but when we come back around for the next row, we are going to put more double crochets into these. And then you'll see kind of this little, it's almost like a knot, but this little twist here where we switch from doing back loop twisted single crochets, and we start doing the both loop half doubles. But so go ahead and finish the 30 half double crochets for row 2. And then you're going to chain 1 turn and do 30 half double crochets for row 3. So I'll see you back when you get to these loops right here, and I'll show you what we're going to do there. Okay, so I have crocheted the 30 half double crochets that finish up row 2 and the first 29 half double crochets that get row 3 started. Your last half double crochet will be a little bit weird because of the twisting. So to put it in both loops, you actually need to kind of move the last twist a little bit, and this is where your stitch is going to go. All right, so now we have 10 double crochets. For this, I always double check it just by counting the back loops that I have. And so when I say back loops, I'm talking about the top of the row 1 double crochets. You're just going to put more double crochets on them. So when we first went through for row 2, these were our front loops that we didn't use, but now that we're coming back around, they're on the back of our project. So I like to just count them to make sure I'm putting them in the right spot, but we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So here's where we're going to put our first double crochet. And I'm holding this a little bit weird, just hoping that it will help you see it. So you see this ridge? It's kind of underneath our twisted single crochets. And when we're done, it's actually going to be behind it. So if you look at the front, you can see that the twisted single crochet right here actually covers up a little bit of the bottom of the double crochet that we just did. So as you go through your twisted single crochet rows and your double crochet rows, they're both going to happen on top of the double crochet rows. So any row 2 repeats that you have are going to start off with twisted single crochets into the back loops of your double crochets. And then when you circle back for row 3, your double crochets are going to be on top of the previous row's double crochets. So right now I'm putting row 3 double crochets on top of row 1 double crochets. So hopefully this helps you kind of visualize what you need to do. But if you have any questions about it, feel free to leave me a comment or shoot me a DM and I can help you work it out. I also have a photo tutorial on my blog, so that could help you a little bit more too. And then once you're done, you can just count. And hopefully you can see how the double crochets, these like 2 rows of double crochets are basically the same height as these 3 rows of half double crochets. But so for our double crochets, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So for my hat, I did 50 total rows, and I just repeated rows 2 and 3 until I got to the end. And then you want to make sure that you're ending on a row 2 repeat. So one of the ones that has the twisted single crochets. So the next thing that we're going to do is work on making our hat look more like a hat, because once you finish this section, you're just going to have a big rectangle. So go ahead and pause the video, finish doing your 50 rows of these repeats, remembering to end on a row 2 twisted single crochet repeat. And again, that's adjustable. So if your head is, that was measured against my head. So if your head is bigger than smaller or smaller than mine, you can add or remove rows as needed. But go ahead and finish that section up, and then we'll check back in when we're about to seam together our hat. So right now I'm just wrapping up the last couple of half double crochets of my very last row. Keep in mind that your last row was, it should have 10 twisted single crochets and then 30 half double crochets. It is not one of the rows that had the double crochets. So if you altered the pattern a little bit, just make sure that you're ending on a row that was twisted single crochets. But all right, so once you've finished all your rows, you should have a big rectangle. And the first thing we're going to do is turn it into a tube. So trim your yarn, leaving kind of a long tail. It definitely doesn't need to be as long as my tail is. But you know, you want it to be maybe like twice as big as your project. We're going to be sewing in the ends. So once you've trimmed it, you can go ahead and just like pull your yarn all the way through. Again, mine's really long because I misjudged what I was doing. But so join your tapestry needle, and we're basically just going to whip stitch these 2 sides together. So to do this, you want to put the wrong sides together. So these are those flat sides. There's no like twisted stitches or anything. So join those up. Since for this project we had the exact same amount of stitches on each side, it should be really quick to join. And you're basically just whip stitching. So you're just going in and out. So like in the side that's closest to you, out kind of that back side. This would look a lot easier if your yarn was shorter than mine. Sometimes you can get a couple stitches at once. Oop. This is not a great example of that happening though. But just go ahead and whip stitch this all the way down. Once you get to the very end, when you have those twisted single crochets, just remember that you're going to be putting your whip stitches in the back. Sorry, I'm distracted by like trying to fix my yarn. But once you get down here, you're going to be putting your whip stitches in the back loops only. You're not going to join like on top of the twisted single crochets. You're going behind them. So just keep that in mind. You can go ahead and pause the video and finish joining this. I'm going to finish joining it and I'll catch back up with you once I'm on that twisted single crochet part, just so you can kind of see what it looks like. All right, so I'm almost done joining. I'm just down to this part with the twisted single crochets. So this, you're going to join exactly the same, where you're just whip stitching and putting your needle through each side. The only difference is that you're going in these back loops of the twisted single crochet part. So we're not crocheting on the twisted single crochets. And you can even kind of like hold them down with your finger if that makes it easier. You can just kind of forget that they're there for right now. So we're just joining these last couple. And then once you've joined everything and gone all the way down the row, you're just going to weave in your ends, just like you normally would. And then when you're done, we're going to flip over, or like flip our thing inside out. So just pretend I wove in my ends. I'm just going to do this to show you. But so we'll flip it the other direction. So now we've got the flat side of our tube. And then that's where we flip out that brim we made with the twisted single crochets. So this is bringing like all that texture back into our hat. So go ahead and weave in your ends. Flip your tube inside out and then fold up your brim, and I'll catch back up with you in a few minutes so that we can do the top, so we can make it into like an actual hat and not just kind of an open tube. Though if this is what you want, you do you. But so go ahead and pause it and I'll see you to finish the hat. All right, so I'm back to show you how to do the top. And basically, we're just going to weave our yarn through the tops of our well, I guess they're kind of the sides of the stitches, but you're just going to weave your yarn through the tops of the project and leave a tail, just so that you're not like, I don't want you to pull it all the way through and lose your spot. So we're just weaving it through this. And we're going to go all the way around, and it'll start to kind of scrunch up. And that is going to be how we close our tube to make it into a hat. So just keep like carefully stitching here. And we're just going to continue to go all the way around. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but really, like, I don't really know what else to say. Try to do this as clean as you can. If you split your yarn, it'll be like more noticeable. But it's not a huge deal if you do, but just try to make sure that you're weaving like between the pieces of yarn and not through them. So we're almost done. You can go ahead and pause it and finish up this last little section. So I've reached the end, and I've pulled it tight, but you can still see that there's still a little bit of a space, which, you know, obviously you don't want to have like a hole in the top of your hat. So what we're going to do is do a little bit more weaving, just to kind of reinforce it. And then we're going to sew it like across, I guess. So you'll start kind of moving from one side of this opening to like the other side of the opening, just to kind of make sure that it's getting tighter. So you don't want to skip ahead too much at first, because you want to make it gradually smaller. But we can kind of skip a few stitches. You can see it getting tighter. And so skip just a couple at first. And then once we've made our way all the way back around, we'll kind of go in even tighter. So we've almost got it all the way closed. So we're still like working our way around. And we're just kind of skipping more and more each time. So now we're down to just this teeny baby hole. And so now we can kind of skip a larger chunk and it almost goes straight to the other side. And we're still just kind of pulling it tight as we go to gradually close off that little hole. And that's basically it. So once you're satisfied with how closed your hole is, then you're you're good to go. And if you're putting a pom-pom on this, then you don't even really need to make it be 100% closed, just because like no one will see the very top of your hat anyway. But okay, so here is our hat right now. So you can go ahead and just make sure that the top is secure. Weave in your ends. If you're adding like a furry pom-pom, you can do that now too. All right, so that is the full Twisted Whims hat pattern. Thank you so much for following along. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and like this video. I also have a blog with lots of free crochet patterns and stitch tutorials. You can follow me on social media. But thanks, y'all. Have a good day.